Welcome to my off-camera flash tutorial for wedding photographers. Today you're going on my camera to a few weddings to show you how I use off-camera flash on an actual wedding day. Taylor Jackson.
Shooting 67 weddings last year.
Taylor Jackson, welcome.
So Taylor, you are well known in this community. You're an amazing photographer.
Hello and welcome to my off-camera flash tutorial for wedding photographers specifically. We're actually gonna go on camera to a few different wedding days and I can show you in the field how I actually use off-camera flash. But for now, I'm gonna start this with, I guess, the overview of off-camera flash and why this video is specifically for wedding photographers and not for commercial shooters necessarily. If I was a commercial shooter, I walked into this space, I could set up a softbox, an octobox, whatever lights I want, reflectors. On a wedding day, I only really get kind of one light on a stick. Otherwise, I'm becoming a little bit too obtrusive. And as much as I would love to plug in a studio strobe and have a huge octobox, like 3 feet away from somebody at a podium, unfortunately, that's just not something that we can do as wedding photographers. So we have to be a lot more low key when it comes to making our lighting as good as it can be, but also being respectful to the day. As you can tell in this shot, this white balance sucks. What I'm going to do anytime that I walk into a room, if this is the getting ready room, I walk in here, I want everything to be a single lighting color or as close to a single lighting color as I can. Right now, the outside light and the incandescent lights up here are kind of battling, and I'd say it's like a 50-50 mix of just kind of weirdness. So I walk into a room, usually I'm gonna turn off the lights. If it's the daytime. If it's the nighttime, I'll usually go by incandescents and giving myself a little bit more exposure there. What you notice instantly is that the quality of light is a heck of a lot better. My off-camera kit is this Godox Xpro transmitter and the Godox V1 flash unit that's kind of over here beside me. And the thing that I love the most about this setup is the fact that it just works all the time. And there's never a refresh time. So if I always shoot my flash manual, I would say 95% of the time. And if I'm shooting at 1/32 power, I'm never going to find the end of that battery because it's a big lithium ion battery. So if you're shooting 1-to-1 pops, you're looking probably at a second recycle time. But other than that, you're free to just fire away and make it look like that Jay-Z concert that you've always dreamed of. That said, don't make it look like a Jay-Z concert or Jay-Z if you're Canadian or British. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm always looking to point this at things. So for instance, in this room right here, everything is white, which is awesome. The ceiling is white, so if I was using an off-camera flash and these walls were all black, I would just be pointing this directly at the ceiling that's white. And if I'm standing over here, I'm gonna get a very nice kind of wash upon me. I'm essentially recreating a giant softbox from the ceiling. So the overall idea is that you wanna take this little tiny flash head like this, and you wanna point it at something bigger. So if I'm pointing it at the wall over here, and the spread is gonna be something like this, I'm essentially turning this wall into a softbox that is like this sized, which is bigger than any softbox I could ever bring in. Obviously, you're not always going to have a huge softbox wall like this or a huge softbox ceiling, but a lot of the time you actually do. If you spend the time to look around, I'm also cool with using something that's kind of a gray wall or even something that's a little bit darker of a neutral. I just turn my flash power up a little bit to compensate for that. And even if you're bouncing off something that is, say, a light wood, and when the light hits it, it is going to pick up a little bit of that yellow-orange and throw that back into the room. If the room is incandescent lit and that orange light coming back in is matching with these lights, you actually have a pretty good workaround. On that note, the one modifier that I do tend to use is this CTO gel, which is just a little orange piece that goes over the light here. This makes it match the light, so if it's an incandescent environment, that my flash is now just a big, super-powered, regular incandescent light, and I can kind of hide that in the room a heck of a lot better. The one thing that I guess off-camera flash does is it opens up a lot more creativity when it comes to actual getting ready shots. So you'll love some of them, and then some of them they'll be like, "Whoa, that's a really cool shot," and then 6 weeks will go by, and you'll be like, "It's not really my style. I was just kind of in the honeymoon phase with it." Everybody goes through that, so don't worry. For deciding how much power to use, usually I just start at 1/64 power and then I kind of dial up from there. The plus with having a transmitter like this Xpro is that you can just control all the settings. So if you want to go all the way up to 1/1 power and kind of work your way back down until it feels a little bit more like it's part of the scene rather than controlling the scene, you can do that, and it's very, very easy to go up and down. If you do want the camera to do more of the work, you can go into TTL mode. The only challenge, I guess, is that your images are going to be a little bit less consistent between the frames, so you're going to add a little bit of time to your post-processing schedule. But other than that, it's still going to generate amazing results. The huge benefit of TTL is that if you're in a big room, and even if you were to have an on-camera flash here and you were taking photos, that if you're taking photos of the podium and then you pivot to something that's even further away, that TTL is going to compensate for that, and it's going to throw more light. My basic strategy when it comes to actually walking into a room is that I want to expose for the room the environment first, and I want to make sure that something accurate accurate to what I want the final product is actually showing up already. And then I'm gonna add my off-camera flash to make it just a little bit better. My old transmitter is actually on my camera now. It has a hot shoe mount, so I could mount my 360 camera to it. Kind of helpful. In this situation right now, I'm just bouncing the light. I'm essentially using it kind of like just a on-camera flash, but bounce straight at the ceiling in front. And it's just making a softer, more kind of almost spotlight light fall over, rather than the ambient light, which would be fine. And the other variation of this is to set it up kind of behind and make it a little bit of a kick light. And I like this look a lot when done very, very subtly. And by subtly, I mean that the flash barely even shows up and you kind of have to almost look for it, but it gives a three-dimensional lighting that you just would not get ambient in this room. Or on the flip side, you can make it a little bit more obvious. All right, so this is maybe the most obvious of all the off-camera flash style things that I would ever do. I feel like I haven't done this in a long time because you kind of do it once and it's always the exact same look. Basically what's happening is the flash is kind of hidden, I would say right about here, kind of where Amanda's elbow is. And I'll give you kind of a top-down view of how this is kind of looking. So basically what's happening is that my flash unit is here. This is a top-down view shooting out this way, and it is at 1/128th power with a diffuser over it as well. That's my drawing of a diffuser. In this case, it was, I believe, an SB700, so it has a little front piece that kind of flips down that, I don't know, makes it a little more diffuse and also a little more, or less directional, I guess, a little more wide angle. Amanda is here. This is the top of her head. And I'll put a smiley face on it. And back here is where I am at with my camera. I'm obviously a fantastic artist. And there is a bit of kind of the awning right here. So basically the way that this is covering her and the rain's all happening out here. I wouldn't ask her to do this on her wedding day in the rain and get actually properly wet. And this flash is essentially just illuminating out this way and lighting up all the rain spots. So everything you're seeing here is all illuminated by that back flash. Sorry that I drew on her here, but that's kind of how it's working out. And it's pretty easy to do this shot, but again, it kind of looks the same every time that you do it. So definitely don't overuse this look. But if you find yourself in a situation like this, if you find yourself out in the snow, I feel like this is a very easy snow photo to do. Winter brides are a little bit more happy to go do that. If you are putting your flash out in the rain, you don't have to buy like a case for it or anything. You just get literally a Ziploc bag and put your flash in a Ziploc bag, and kind of adds like a little more diffusion as well. But that's kind of the easiest way. You can also like put them in pools and stuff if you do that, if you're feeling ambitious enough. So yeah, that's how you take that shot. Hopefully it takes a little bit of the mystery away from it. Yeah. 1/128th power, which is as low as it goes, just backlighting directly behind and making sure that it's not creeping too much through, because if I can see the actual flash head, it really just creates a super J.J. Abrams style lens flare that is very difficult to control. If the hard plastic gel, the color temperature orange plastic thing doesn't exist for your flash, you can just Velcro it, and you can buy some off Amazon and just get a bunch of different colors of gels and just Velcro it right to your flash, and it does the exact same thing that any sort of purchase modifier would do. Here with this light, I'm basically just lighting up the entire ceiling kind of in front of the podium, halfway in between me and whoever is speaking at the podium. And the good thing is that it's just good quality light regardless of where you go in the room, that they're always going to be lit the same. So you don't have to worry too hard about like moving lights or getting close enough for TTL to make sure that it's lit up, that everything is just good and consistent. Now, moving into the dancing aspect of the evening, I always have one light set up to just make good quality light over the room. And then at this point, I can play with the idea of setting up a second off-camera light. So if I was going to do that, I would have it as low a power as possible and kind of pointed directly at the other light. So it's kind of going across the dance floor back towards me and play around with a little bit of flare. But my packages are set up so that usually like 3 or 4 songs into dancing, I'm on my way home. So that's not something that I've done in a couple of years now. Here's an example of maybe unnecessary off-camera flash, but it also does give you like, I would say an 8% kind of boost in interestingness to typically what would be a boring shot. How I have the off-camera flash set up. lowest power, setup pointed directly facing my camera just as a backlight, and trying to hide it as best I can between the couple. And I guess the bonus to this is that you can have them walk towards you, and you can also be firing that off-camera flash, especially with this system. It definitely keeps up, and you can create something that is just a little bit different and feels a little bit better, I think, overall than a traditional shot that would have been in the exact same situation without off-camera flash. Here kind of set off to the right there, and just working as kind of that, I guess, more of a side light just to add a little bit more of three-dimensionality into the scene, and I think it works really well. Is it 100% required? Like, do you have to for sure go outside with an off-camera flash now? No. It would have worked well without the off-camera flash. I guess the trade-off is that you work a little bit slower, so you get less frames, but the frames that you do get are a little bit better. So you kind of have to find your balance within there. Right now I have Marshall holding my flash kind of off to the left-hand side there that I just pointed at. And I'm trying to get a little bit of a backlight because I want to make this a really romantic, dark, moody looking image because the sky is so incredible right now. And I was also hoping that we would catch a little bit of lightning because this is a thunderstorm rolling in. It's a fly landed on my transmitter there. And I have Marshall hiding the flash as best he can, but I do know that I'm probably gonna have to be photoshopping it out of a few shots. So that's, I guess, another efficiency downgrade by using off-camera flash is one that the frames are gonna be a little bit less consistent, but you're gonna be able to create work that in no other lighting situation could have existed like this one here. That wraps up the off-camera flash for weddings tutorial. Hopefully you learned a little bit from this, and hopefully it inspired you to get the right tools that you need to go out there and just start experimenting on your own. I think the most important part with off-camera flash is really just to get out there and start doing it. You learn a lot, and you have a lot of time over the reception specifically to just make sure everything is set up by the time that speeches start, by the time that the dancing starts. Walking into a getting ready room, that you have the time as well to at least kind of practice with the details and get comfortable in the lighting scenario, and then bring that light over to the humans if that's something that you want to be doing. With that though, there's going to be a lot of challenges that you're going to discover. It's a whole new thing if this is your first time doing off-camera flash, to bring in your own lighting and to not really be able to see exactly what it's going to do before it does it. That you can have your best guess of how that bounce is going to look, but as soon as you hit the shutter, it's going to be a lot different than you were kind of expecting. Sometimes the positive is that makes it a heck of a lot better, and it's actually a really, really fantastic surprise. But then also the flip side is also true, where you think you have everything set up and then it's not working at all. But just know that there are always options, and you can always do the best that you can with it. And usually that's going to be a lot better than if you just try to shoot the room ambient. So definitely a useful skill to have. But as I said in the beginning, I don't use off-camera flash unless I absolutely need to. So that is kind of my stance on it, that I would much rather shoot ambient when possible, and this to come in just in case anything's going a little bit weird. There's those tiny little pot lights. Whatever it might be that's making my lighting not great, I know that I can override it if needed, but I would much rather not have to do anything if at all possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.